right, we're back with another market update. I'm Troy Walker, Director of Fertilizer and Crop Nutrients for MKC and Mid-West Fertilizer, joined again by Scott Barkley, VP of Energy, and Devin Schierling, VP of Sales for MKC and Mid-West Fertilizer. Scott, I know we weren't able to have you on last time, but surprisingly, we haven't run out of diesel since the last time we did this update.
I think it's been more than 25 days, too, which is,
that's amazing.
There were some folks that were predicting that we would be out by now, and store shelves would be bare and pandemonium with cats and dogs sleeping together. But that hasn't happened, so we are still seeing plenty of diesel fuel supply. In fact, the Department of Energy inventory levels came out today. This morning, as we're making this recording on the 23rd of November, we are now back within a 3-year average of diesel supply domestically. So that's what we alluded to in the last podcast, and I'm happy to be back. Thanks for covering that, Troy. What we alluded to is that domestic production is greater than domestic demand, and that's really what we need to pay attention to. Occasionally, domestic production decreases with maintenance seasons or unexpected outages of big refineries. We didn't have that this time, but we did have a big maintenance season, and we had some diesel fuel that was getting exported to the high demand market in Europe. That price kind of corrected itself. Cure for high prices is high prices. So once the prices got to a point domestically that it no longer made sense to ship that diesel fuel to Europe, it stays here. We've got plenty of supply. Everything's going to be fine.
It's amazing how these headlines and issues have changed a little bit since the beginning of November and the election now. Not that we have any solid data, but it does feel a little less crazy. I think we were commenting since the election day has passed us. So we'll see how that goes. Now on the back to the crazy train though, Devin, we were talking about the train problem that we potentially have. What's your take on that?
Troy, that's been if you picked up any news rag, you'll see that the rail labor negotiations are top of mind. And so really as we look at it, we're coming up here on this cooling off period. Everyone from a labor perspective has came to the same date, so that way we can at least continue to negotiate and make this happen. You can read a different opinion based off of what lens you're looking at when it comes to this dispute. But at the end of the day, if we can't move our product from coast to coast and use our full advantage, which is our transportation system, it impacts our ability to be competitive on a worldwide market in face of the headwinds we have of a stronger dollar, and then just not being overly competitive, as the U.S. is the residual supplier of grain for the world. And so that's still one of those battles that will continue. So how will it manifest itself here to our local producers in McPherson County? If we get to a spot where trains aren't able to bring corn to western Kansas because they're not there, then that changes our freight availability, our basis levels, to make sure that the cows eat every day. And so it's a really big change that we have to keep our eyes on, and that's why we're very involved in National Grain and Feed Association, our different state associations, to make sure that we're working to help find a good solution to make sure our farmers can be successful long term.
Yeah, if you had to take all of the rail and switch it to trucks, that would be a major problem.
Well, absolutely.
Although it would help Scott's diesel sales.
We could get some diesel supply out of that, I bet.
Yeah, yay patronage. But at the end of the day, my concern would be, one train is 440 truckloads.
Yeah.
So now you have 440 trucks going from Illinois to southwest Kansas. And oh, by the way, you're unloading multiple shuttles a week. So that's a lot of additional movement of grain that would just change.
And you would have taken those truckloads from the fertilizer group, so we would all be sitting here with no fertilizer as the trucks went to haul grain. But we're already seeing that to some extent. Whether it's trucking companies going out or getting out or retiring, we saw a lot of that with COVID, and we're not seeing the same rates of people getting out. But we're still every couple of months we'll lose a trucking group that we've been using for years just due to retirement or the cost of replacing equipment or whatever it may be. So we are seeing that. I mean, while we're talking about delays and issues, The other one for us is the river.
Yeah.
We've got some rains here through central Kansas, eastern Kansas, southwest Missouri, but a couple of inches of rain here doesn't mean a lot in the giant Mississippi River. We need lots of rain up in the northern states, and frankly, we were unlikely to get that until the springtime. So while the Mississippi River did go up, if you look at the projections moving forward over the next 30 to 60 days, it goes right back down. And we never got over the quote, critical level.
But Troy, weather is always unpredictable. And so you see the path of the storms coming in over the Thanksgiving holiday. Originally, we weren't going to have any rain.
Yep.
And now they have rain in the forecast for Saturday,
Yep.
and it looks like a fairly big swath. So I think that although it is critical, right now we've seen some relief there, and I think that's more noise than necessarily it is a true market driver as we speak.
I do want to go back to something here, gentlemen, because I think it's interesting. Our industries are tied together, and certainly, we were joking about maybe getting some increased diesel demand if there were rail outages because of this negotiation period. But what I would tell you is that the market does not tell us that they think that that's a likely scenario. Diesel prices would jump if the traders were predicting that there were going to be some rail outage. If the traders thought that the probability of that happening was significant enough that it was going to drive rail traffic to trucks, the price of diesel fuel, the future price of diesel fuel, would be trending upward. Right now, as we speak, it would probably be up pretty hard. That's not the case. Right now, we're actually down several cents on diesel in the futures market today. Now, it goes up and down, but what that's telling me is that the traders don't think that there's going to be a major rail outage and that it's not going to be significantly impacting demand.
And that's like we've said before, that basis doesn't lie when it comes to what was the size of the crop. And when you see our end users having to pay above the futures board to get that crop in, that means we have a higher cash value of grain, which goes back to the old story of the basis doesn't lie, or the markets will give you leading indicators.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on real quick here before we wrap it up, kind of what we're seeing with fertilizer. Devin and I were talking about, there's not a whole lot of activity going on right now. We've seen that in fertilizer as well. And I know on the fertilizer side, when there's not a lot of activity, it tends to drop, the price continues to work itself down. The idea there is you're going to work the price down until you find a place where people want to step in and buy some. We've seen that in a significant way as it relates to urea. Urea, again, the globally traded fertilizer out there. It is dropped quite a bit, and we're starting to reflect that. So as growers are now getting ready, again, we got a little bit of moisture here. We've got a little bit of a wheat crop coming up, mixed on how good it looks or how, whatever. But I think a lot of growers are starting to think about, hey, I'm going to put some top dress on, or at least on some of my acres. And so that decision between whether I'm going to do urea, dry, or liquid UAN, it's an interesting one, excuse me, this year, because that spread is pretty significant, as large as we've seen the price per pound of N spread between urea and UAN. Matter of fact, urea and NH3 are the same value per N, which is frankly unheard of in this market. So I look at this as a little bit of a gift for the farmers, because we talk about supply and demand. We're not importing any urea right now.
And we're looking at seeing some increased farmers selling for those deferred years, similar to what you're talking about. They're doing a year-end planning, so what decisions we want to make going forward. But the major change from this year versus previous years is we're making sure we have flexibility in the marketplace. So lots of floors being put in the market with unlimited upside, because their fear of the unknown is high, because that's what we experienced the last 18 to 24 months. But yet they're very concerned going forward is we don't get the opportunity to sell $6 corn, $13 beans, $9 wheat very often. So how do we manage through these environments? And that's what our grain marketing team is really focusing on at the farm gate today.
Well, I think the uncertainty is really what's got me. I'm uncertain. We're in uncharted waters, of course, as fertilizer goes. But like I said, urea is really low right now, in my opinion, way lower than what it should be, given how much we have on hand and how much we're importing versus how much we're exporting. I view this time as a gift. But but we don't know. And we've just not been in a position like this before. We've not had the disruptions that we've had with the war in Europe and the lack of supply coming out of China and the lack of production out of Europe, and we just haven't had those situations before. So a little bit of uncertainty going forward, but I think that's where every grower, you got to work with the team. We say this about every time. You got to work with your team, figure out where you're at, figure out what your risk tolerance is, where you can be profitable, and lock in those opportunities to be profitable when you have them. So hey, we appreciate everybody listening. Happy Thanksgiving to you gentlemen here and everybody listening to our broadcast whenever you do catch it. And we'll look forward to chatting with you again soon.